share with you my story, would you share your dollar with me? Bad times are coming and I reap what I done sowed. Hey, hey. Well, let me tell you something, all that glitters ain't gold. Hey, hey. It's been a long old troublesome road, and I'm looking for somebody come and help me carry this
KBLA
load.
Talk 1580.
I need dollars.
Thank you, Aloe Black. It's time to talk reparations. We do this every Friday. Been doing it close to 2 years, or over a year and a half. And I think we're getting somewhere just in terms of having a better understanding of what's going on in the world, in the country, in our state around this issue, even in the middle of the moment that we're in this country. The progress continues. I am very excited to talk with Senior Counsel in the Economic Justice Program at the New Jersey Institute for Social Justice. He leads their reparations advocacy, and he was a member of the Reparations Narrative Lab, represented that institute as a community fellow on the Rutgers Newark Crafting Democratic Futures Project, and community dialogues on reparations. Attorney Jean-Pierre Brutus, welcome.
Thank you so much, Dominique, for having me today. I really appreciate it.
Yeah, thank you for taking time to spend with us today. Talk to me about how you came to reparations, how this became why you see it as such an important issue.
Sure. So I think one of the key things in thinking about reparations is in the past few years, particularly in light of what's happened with COVID, we've seen sort of an exacerbation of racial inequalities, particularly in New Jersey, but in the United States. And one of the things that we've seen in response to that is kind of thinking in the same kind of mode, this kind of harm reduction model. Like, how can we make these kind of small changes to address these racial inequities? And rather than think in this kind of harm reduction model kind of approach, the approach that the Institute at the New Jersey Institute for Social Justice has taken is this kind of affirmative approach, thinking big picture, thinking about reparations. How do we fundamentally transform these conditions to build a new kind of New Jersey where Black people can flourish? And that requires a kind of historical awareness or historical consciousness, an awareness of the role and impact of slavery on contemporary racial inequalities. And so at the Institute, we've been organizing in support and leading a coalition in support of a reparations task force here in New Jersey. And actually, New Jersey was the first state in November of 2019 to introduce state-level legislation to establish a reparations task force bill. Now, unfortunately, the legislature in New Jersey actually never heard that bill for a hearing. They never moved on that bill. And so rather than wait on the legislature to do the right thing, the Institute convened the New Jersey Reparations Council in June of 2023. And we launched the council in Perth Amboy, which was the largest site for the trafficking of enslaved people in New Jersey. And the council brought together 55 experts. You've got scholars, practitioners, community members who are experts in their areas for a 2-year project, which culminated in the council's final report. The report makes the case for reparations in New Jersey. And that includes making a historical claim about the impact of slavery in New Jersey, Jim Crow in New Jersey, segregation in New Jersey as contemporary racial equality, and the need for repair, right? Both in the sense of comprehensive reparations, and that includes direct financial payments, but also a whole host of programmatic or policy changes. All right, and we've got close to 100 recommendations across a number of different areas. And the purpose of these recommendations are to strengthen our democracy, improve healthcare access, eliminate environmental racism, end school and housing segregation, close the racial wealth gap, and dismantle a punitive and racist system of policing and punishment.
So, in effect, you bypassed the legislature and said, we're going to create our own council. Here's the experts. Here's the public comment. From what I'm reading on the website, it's similar to what California did. It's just not coming through the legislature.
Yes, exactly. So this is, I believe, as far as I'm aware, the first instance of a state-level task force that was led by the community. And we looked at California. California, served as a model in some ways for the work that we did, as well as other task forces around the country to help us organize our council. And so, just like California, we have a number of different issue areas. So we've got history of slavery in New Jersey. That's one committee. We've got public education and narrative. We've got economic justice, irrigation in New Jersey, democracy, public safety and justice, health equity, environmental justice, and faith and Black resistance.
Yeah, I have a lot of family in New Jersey. And including my brother, who just ran for governor and and didn't win, but he did a good showing. Maybe next time you'll get Baraka as a governor. But I know just from my family there that folks call it up south. That much like California, we people will say, well, it wasn't a slave state, but actually New Jersey has more history than folks think, right?
Yes. So first, I want to say Mayor Baraka, we want to thank him because he narrated our animated explainer video about slavery in New Jersey and about the need for reparations in New Jersey, as well as he served as the keynote during our Juneteenth event, providing a lot of energy and excitement to the audience and inspiring a lot of folks about the need for supporting reparations in New Jersey. So we appreciate Mayor Baraka for that. But what I will say about New Jersey, and I think this is important because, as you pointed out, many folks think that because New Jersey is a northern state, it benefits from this kind of halo of progressivism, this kind of exceptionality that is different from the South, right? Yeah. And I want to point out two things. One, historians have called New Jersey the slave state of the North because New Jersey was a slave society. By that, I mean that New Jersey was dependent upon slavery. It wasn't just a random occurrence. It was fundamental to the building and the creation of New Jersey as a state. New Jersey's wealth comes from slavery, right? Slavery in New Jersey became the primary source of labor in the 18th century. And that's why our report for such a time as this, the Announcement of Reparations of Black people in New Jersey, highlights the role that slavery played in New Jersey as a northern state. Not only that, after slavery ended in New Jersey relied on segregation and Jim Crow. Activists, the Black activists and civil rights leaders in New Jersey called New Jersey the Georgia of the North in the 20th century, in the early 20th century, because of its commitment to segregation. And so I also want to give your audience another stat, because I think this is important if we're thinking about how much New Jersey was dependent on slavery and how this influenced New Jersey up into this moment. So in 1830, of the enslaved population in the North, of all the northern states, 2/3 of enslaved people lived in New Jersey.
Wow.
New Jersey was yes, exactly,
That's
right? New Jersey
wild.
was the only, wild, right? That's how dependent New Jersey was on slavery. Also, New Jersey was the only state in the North to support the Federal Fugitive Slave Act. That act allowed Southern enslavers to go into northern states, kidnap people who had self-emancipated, Black people, and bring them back to the South, back into enslavement. New Jersey was the only state in the North to support that and to facilitate the re-enslavement of Black people in the North. It also did not support Lincoln in either of the elections in which Lincoln ran, and it was the last state in the North to abolish slavery, and that was not until it ratified the 13th Amendment in 1866.
What a legacy. That's a whole lot. We're talking with attorney Jean-Pierre Brutus. He's a senior counsel in the Economic Justice Program at the New Jersey Institute for Social Justice and part of this Reparations Council. We'll talk more. We'll keep this Freedmen Friday conversation going. You're welcome in at 800-920-1580. We're unapologetically reparationist KBLA, Talk 1580.
She's reclaiming her time on KBLA Talk 1580. More First Things First with Dominique DiPrima when we come forward.
One like you. Yeah.
At KBLA Talk 1580, we're proud to be celebrating 4 years on the air, but we know we could not have made it this far without you. We work hard every single day to curate conversations that will enlighten, encourage, and empower you. So, from all of us at KBLA Talk 1580, a big thank you for your love and support.
You don't know how much you mean to me.
And by the way, if your smartphone did not update automatically, be sure to download our brand new KBLA 1580 app. We think you'll love all the new features, including new ways to send us photos and video in real time, whenever news breaks, while we're on the air. It's a new dawn, a new day for KBLA Talk 1580, and we're glad you're on this journey with us.
You never turned away, you were right there. Thank you.
Febreze. It's a classic odor tale. You fried fish for dinner, cleaned up, but the smell is still in the house. And the neighbors are coming over for game night. They're on their way. And then you spray Febreze Air Mist. Febreze Air starts working instantly to fight even your toughest odors, so you go from fish to fresh like that. Now all you have to worry about is Pam cheating at charades.
Breathe happy, Febreze, la 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 la.
Small businesses are the heart of America. But you don't have to go it alone. As the nation's largest nonprofit resource of expert business mentoring, SCORE has helped millions of entrepreneurs build their businesses for free. Get the connections, education, and guidance you need with SCORE. We're ready to help. Find a mentor today at score.org.
Sometimes an identity threat is a ring of professional hackers. And sometimes it's an overworked accountant who forgot to encrypt their connection while sending bank details.
I need a coffee.
And you need LifeLock, because your info is in endless places. It only takes one mistake to expose you to identity theft. LifeLock monitors hundreds of millions of data points a second. If your identity is stolen, we'll fix it, guaranteed, or your money back. Save up to 40% your first year with promo code NEWS at LifeLock.com. Terms apply.
Why'd I go to the doctor? One day at the firehouse, I was so lightheaded I could barely stand. Even my crew noticed. Getting checked out was the right call. Turns out I have atrial fibrillation, which increases the risk of stroke about 5 times.
Symptoms like irregular heartbeat, heart racing, chest pain, shortness of breath, fatigue, or lightheadedness can come and go. But if it's AFib, the risk of stroke remains. If you have symptoms, contact a doctor.
I'm so glad I did.
Visit notimetowait.com, sponsored by Bristol-Myers Squibb and Pfizer.
The conversation continues right now with Dominique DiPrima on First Things First.
It is a Freedmen Friday, and we're talking with Attorney Jean-Pierre Brutus. He is part of the organization that put together this Reparations Council for the state of New Jersey. How does that work when it's not it's not coming out of the legislature? They have no even fake commitment to implementing your recommendations. How do you connect those dots?
Sure. So that's a great question. So first, all task forces, including the state of California and soon New York and Illinois and Washington State and D.C., as well as other locales around the country, their recommendations as part of their task forces are non-binding, just like the recommendations that come out of our report. So the New Jersey Institute for Social Justice, we are an advocacy organization based in Newark. We are actually in our 26th year, and we've been advocating for racial and social justice for Black and brown people and other people of color in this state around a series of statewide policies. Now, as part of the work of the Reparations Council, as I said earlier, we invited experts and practitioners from in the state and around the country who have expertise in the different subject matter areas. Now, we've made close to 100 policy recommendations, and as part of that, we want to sort of make reparations common sense and commonplace, as with other reparations advocates around the country. And this is the work that has to be done in California, This is the work that has to be done in New York. This is the work that has to be done nationally. And that requires building support with communities across New Jersey, instructing them about what happened in this report. And so what we found is that the more people learn about slavery in New Jersey, the more they learn about what happened in their own backyards, the more supportive they become for repair and for reparations. And so part of the work that we are going to do with this report is to educate the public of New Jersey, socialize the public, not only about reparations, but about the need, about the history, because 56% of New Jerseyans do not know that slavery happened in New Jersey. So one of the key building blocks, one of the first steps, is to teach people about slavery in New Jersey. And so that's not just with the report, but taking the information in the report and making it digestible to folks so that people can understand in the ways that they learn. So we'll make videos, audio, we'll have all kinds of ways of getting the information to people so that then people can then call their legislature, call their representatives and tell them, hey, I support reparations because this is necessary and key to New Jersey thriving. Because as we know, when Black people thrive, when Black people flourish, everyone flourishes, everyone thrives. And we've seen this historically, we've seen this in Reconstruction, we've seen this during the Civil Rights Movement. And so what we're trying to do is to make people understand that reparations isn't just this random thing, it's not threatening, it's actually key to building our multiracial democracy.
There's a lot of stuff you said there that I want to unpack, but I'm looking at, the report right now, and you start with enslavement, you go through the Jim Crow era, and then you do 1960s to the present. And one of the things that we've found is that a lot of the resistance to reparations in the non-Black public has to do with this idea that people who never owned slaves are paying the price for people who did own slaves, and that tying it exclusively to slavery makes it harder for people to accept, understand, because I've been talking about this since the 1990s with Dick Gregory, and one of the things he always said was we have to normalize it. It sounds like that's what you're trying to do, but by talking so much about slavery, do you get that kind of pushback, and how do you address it?
So that's a great question. I'm going to give you and your audience a number, and I'm going to repeat it 2 times: 643,000. I'm going to say that number one more time. 643,000. That is the racial wealth gap in New Jersey. The gap between the median white household wealth in New Jersey and the median Black household wealth in New Jersey. That is one of the largest, if not the largest, racial wealth gap in the country. And we can draw a direct line between slavery in New Jersey and that racial inequality, as well as other racial inequities between the maternal mortality gap, the incarceration gap, the infant mortality gap. And the reason why I bring that up in relation to your question is that we have to start with slavery to lay the foundation, because in New Jersey, when it became an English colony in 1664, the English created a racialized system of property distribution. So when white enslavers from Barbados came to New Jersey, they were given 150 acres of land and then an additional 150 acres of land. And that set the foundation for the racial wealth gap to this day. But New Jersey didn't just stop with slavery. And this is why, to your point about bringing up our discussion about Jim Crow and racial and contemporary racial equality, New Jersey continued with practices like redlining and racially restrictive covenants, right, including Black people from participating in the GI Bill, that led to exacerbating even further the racial wealth gap and other racial disparities. And so we see this kind of accumulation of racial disparity through practices that the state of New Jersey oversaw, guided, created, and led to this moment. And so, yes, we don't just talk about slavery, but we make the case that repair needs to happen for the racist practices that the state engaged in after slavery, during the 20th century, during the 19th century. To put it another way, we are living in the world that slavery made, and now we want to live in the world that reparations made. And the only way that happens is to think about reparations as a process.
Okay, when you say 643,000, explain what you mean. You're saying that the median white family is worth $683,000 more? Is that what you're telling me right now? That would mean most.
Yes, $643,000.
That means the median family in New Jersey is worth more than $500,000. That's
the reason why that is because of housing, because of the racial homeownership gap, particularly because of COVID. So much of most Americans and most people, particularly the average American, their wealth derives from ownership in a home. And what happened is you saw an extent, and that comes from the 1930s in light of what happened with the Great Depression. But what happened with the racial wealth gap in New Jersey, you saw almost a doubling in the past 10 years because of COVID. A lot of black people lost their homes.
Yes.
Their main source of wealth. And that led to this further exacerbation in the racial wealth gap. And then also you saw a lot of home values for white people rise. What you also seen historically is that when black people also own a home, they don't derive the same benefits in terms of wealth building that you see with white families. That also exacerbates the racial wealth gap. Their home, partly that is part of the devaluation of black homes through these kind of, basically a devaluation of blackness with owning a home. So black home ownership isn't as economically productive or remunerative as it is for white families.
Yeah. Do you believe, and I've got some folks here in the YouTube chat saying, what about California and that a national registry is needed and talking about the debt. Do you believe that this momentum or the uptick in states, whether in the case of New Jersey where you did your own council or the growing number of states that are taking this up, and cities and counties, do you think that'll lead to federal action, federal registry, that progress in New Jersey or progress in Maryland means progress in Colorado or California?
Yes, we take a both-and approach at the Institute and at the Jersey Reparations Council in New Jersey, in the sense that we believe that activity at the local level, at the state level, will have an influence at the national and federal level. Right? What we're doing at the state level, at the local level, can serve as an example to the federal government, eventually to H.R. 40, to the legislation that was first introduced in 1989 or 1988 by Representative John Conyers. So we don't see it as, state and local activity undermining federal activity. What we see this as laying the groundwork and providing an example for what could be done. Essentially, the states are sort of, to use that old phrase, laboratories or experiments of democracy, particularly here in the reparations space. How do we implement best practices? What can we learn from what's happening on the ground at the local level? But also, we need to think about this as well. The harms of slavery were vast. The repair must be vast. And states and localities have responsibilities independent of the federal government. And they also need to bear their responsibility by taking action, by enacting task forces, and then engaging in repair.
Yeah. We only have 2 minutes, a minute and a half till news, traffic, and sports. We'll continue on the other side, and we'll get into, eligibility and all of that, because I heard you mention that, the Institute works with people of color, and of course, that's part of the struggle is who's eligible and is it reparations if it's not targeting the descendants of people who are enslaved in this country. But we only have a minute here, so we'll tackle that on the other side. And I'll ask you the question they're asking in the chat. Do you see it as a debt?
In part, so I will say this. In part, yes. So I take a both-hand approach to thinking about reparations. It is in part a debt owed, but reparations is more than just a debt owed. It is the need for transforming the current society in a way that where Black people can flourish, Black people can thrive, in a world where Black people can thrive and flourish in a multiracial democracy. It is a process.
Yeah. 30 seconds in till News, Traffic, and Sports. Want to tell people where to find the report.
So please go to njisj.org or njreparationscouncil.org, and you will immediately find a link to the report. It will be right there on the front page. So njisj.org or njreparationscouncil.org.
All right. Thank you. Attorney Jean-Pierre Brutus is my guest. It's a Freedmen Friday. News, traffic, and sports, then more right here.
The station you turn to when you've had it up to gear with cultural incompetence. KBLA Talk 1580.
I'm Bree Wood with BIN News Now. Columbia graduate Mahmoud Khalil is suing the Trump administration for $20 million, claiming false imprisonment and retaliation for his pro-Palestinian activism.
What I want is actually a real accountability against the injustices that happened against me.
Khalil was detained by ICE for over 100 days and says his arrest was politically motivated. Conservative commentator Charlie Kirk is under fire after blaming Texas flood deaths on diversity policies. On his show, he claimed DEI hiring hurt emergency response without evidence. Critics say the real issue is underfunded systems, not inclusion. And Jennifer Hudson will headline the 4th annual Whitney E. Houston Legacy of Love Gala on August 9th in Atlanta, Georgia. The event honors the 40th anniversary of Houston's career and includes performances, a symphony, and scholarships for HBCU arts students. Get BIN News Now on demand 24/7 on the iHeartRadio app.
Got issues with youth or high school sports? Positive Coaching Alliance can help. PCA, a national nonprofit, offers more than 1,000 free online resources for youth and high school sports coaches, parents, students, and administrators. Visit PCADevZone.org.
This is the KBLA Sports Minute with Ray Richardson.
Because Bronny James played in only 27 games last season for the Lakers, he's playing with the Lakers rookies and free agents in the NBA Summer League in Las Vegas. The Summer League tipped off Thursday night with Bronny and the Lakers facing rookies and free agents from the Dallas Mavericks, including number 1 pick Cooper Flagg. Both players had moderate debuts. James finished with 8 points in 21 minutes. He missed a potential go-ahead three-pointer in the final seconds. Flagg ended up with 10 points, 6 rebounds, 4 assists, and 3 steals. He was scoreless in the second half. Dallas won the game by 2. The HBCU Swingman Classic jumps off today in Atlanta as part of Major League Baseball's All-Star Weekend. Major League scouts will get a chance to see the best HBCU baseball players from around the country. MLB Network will have live coverage beginning at 4:30 Pacific Time. No debates, no speculation, just the info you need. That's your KBLA Sports Minute. I'm Ray Richardson on KBLA Talk 1580.
Break out the champagne. Everybody get a glass.
Tavis Smiley is now ranked number 16 nationally and the highest rated talk show hosted by an African American on the 2025 Talkers Heavy 100 list of the most important talk radio hosts in the nation. Last year, Tavis ranked number 33 and the year before, number 45. The Tavis Smiley Show has rapidly expanded its national syndication to now include nearly 50 radio stations across the country and counting. Congratulations, Tavis.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
This is KBLA Talk 1580. Talk radio. That's music to your ears. We're unapologetically progressive. KBLA Talk 1580.
LA County's Justice Care and Opportunities Department, also known as JCOD, is changing the justice system for Angelenos. If you or someone you love has recently been arrested, come home from jail or prison, or has been justice involved, JCOD can help. We offer access to housing, employment, court reminders, clothing, education, and more. At JCOD, we believe your life should not be defined by your worst moment, and everyone deserves a second chance. JCOD's Justice Connect Support Center is open 7 days a week from 6 a.m. to 11 p.m. Call us at 833-LAC-JCOD. That's 833-522-5263, or visit us at jcod.lacounty.gov. You can also find us on Instagram, Threads, Facebook, and YouTube at LAC JCOD. All services are free and confidential. JCOD serves the justice-impacted population all across LA County. Your future isn't behind you, it's waiting. Reach out by calling 833-LAC-JCOD. That's 833-522-5263, or visit jcod.lacounty.gov.
Hey man, hey, what's
up, What's the station you listening to? Oh, man, you don't know? That's Talk Radio. KBLA, 1580 AM. Check it out. 1580 KBLA AM. 1580 Talk Radio. Progressive.
At KBLA Talk 1580, we're celebrating our 4th anniversary, and this track right here is the gift one of our devoted listeners presented to us.
Where you get some information, get a true education to know. Ooh, yeah. 1580.
How cool is that? Having a member of our KBLA delegation write us a song. Stop it! Our listeners love us and there ain't nothing we can do about it. Wouldn't want to. Thanks to Cardell and everybody else for turning on KBLA Talk 1580. We love you right black.
Find a righteous rage and don't be afraid to say what you see. We're KBLA Talk 1580.
And we're talking reparations. We do that every single Friday, and so happy to have a voice in the conversation I haven't had a chance to talk with before. Attorney Jean-Pierre Brutus, New Jersey Reparations Council, Senior Counsel in the Economic Justice Program at the New Jersey Institute for Social Justice. So always the elephant in the room is who is eligible, right? And how do we make sure that reparations, especially in this anti-affirmative action, anti-DEI, and definitely anti-black era that we're in, how do we make sure it lands where it's meant to land?
Yeah, thanks, Dominique. That's an important question, and thank you for that. So just to clarify, the Institute in our broader work focuses on people of color around our racial justice work, and specifically with the Institute and the Council on this report on reparations, we are focused on Black people. And so I think to get into it, I think sometimes the way in which this eligibility question is framed is considered only as an either or, where there are only two options, where either eligibility is for the descendants of enslaved people in the U.S. or it's for Black people as a whole. And I think what gets lost is that that framework sees those positions as in opposition, like they are opposed to each other, as opposed to one having the capacity to encompass the other. So let me give you an example. We take a both-end approach in the report on multiple levels. The first is thinking about reparations, about how we think about reparations. We think about reparations comprehensively, which includes direct payments and programmatic reform and changes, transformations. But also we have a both-end approach to eligibility. So, for example, on our direct payments, we have three types of direct payments. The first form is direct payments to the descendants of enslaved people in New Jersey for the uncompensated labor of their ancestors. The second payment is related to our previous discussion about the racial wealth gap, is to payments for all Black people in New Jersey to close the racial wealth gap. The $643,000 racial wealth gap, which would total to $363 billion for all Black families. And the last direct payment is to compensate all Black people in New Jersey for post-slavery harms that are non-economic, which amounts to what we would call pain and suffering. Then we've got programmatic reforms across a whole host of areas, right? As I said earlier, these reforms or changes are really meant to transform New Jersey into a new kind of society that will allow people to thrive in a multiracial democracy. They're meant to strengthen our democracy, improve healthcare access, eliminate environmental racism, ending school and housing segregation, closing the racial wealth gap, and dismantling a punitive racist system of policing and punishment. Part of our understanding is that eligibility doesn't stay the same for each kind of recommendation. It shifts, particularly because we take what's called a harms-based approach. Right? We look at and this is why in the report we go in detail about the harms, about the black people who were harmed under certain kinds of what we call racial regimes, so slavery, Jim Crow segregation, and contemporary racial inequality. A significant portion, if not the majority of the black population in New Jersey after slavery comes to New Jersey as part of the Great Migrations. They were not the descendants of enslaved people in New Jersey, but descendants of black people throughout the country and came to New Jersey as part of the wave of the Great Migration. So we've got to think about eligibility for those folks. We got to think about folks who came to New Jersey, not just from the other parts of the country, from other parts of the world as well, who live in New Jersey and are subject to contemporary racial inequality and have been here for generations as well. And so our policy recommendations take that into account, as well as our vision for comprehensive reparations and our understanding of addressing racial inequality. And so you bring up an interesting point about this attack of affirmative action and DEI. And part of this is this kind of story that's being told about the 14th Amendment, right? And it's kind of a misrecognition of the original purpose of the 14th Amendment. The 14th Amendment, as scholars and as Justice Ketanji Brown Jackson has pointed out in her own dissent, was designed to address what folks call racial degradation. It was designed to address both the black codes, also enslavement, also to address the ways in which free black people were treated as well. And so it is meant to empower the federal legislature, the Congress, to address race-conscious policies. But what has happened is that there's been this kind of judicial interpretation of the 14th Amendment that has overlooked, denied, suppressed this interpretation, so that we think of the Constitution in terms of colorblind, and it's not meant to address a kind of racial justice nature of Reconstruction in the 13th, 14th, and 15th Amendment. And so we have this situation where people think that addressing racial inequality is unconstitutional, talking about race is unlawful, or it's not appropriate. But that was what the work of the Reconstruction was about addressing fundamentally the ways in which slavery and the ways in which the black codes essentially led to the racial degradation of black people, and the 13th and 14th Amendment were designed to address that.
You said a lot right there, and I'm not quite sure if everyone took it all in, but just to kind of segment what you've just said, you started off talking about tiers of reparatory programs, right? Tiers of direct payments and tiers of policy changes that impact different groups of black people. So that's what you mean when you say a both and approach, right?
So yeah, both and approach. So the approach of I'll try to reframe it in a different way so their audience can understand. So we have an abundance mindset in the sense that we don't think that an approach that addresses all black people in this state is going to lead to less for other segments of the black population, right? A scarcity mindset. And we don't think of reparations just in terms of cash payments, right? We think of reparations as being both comprehensive reform, the policies that we have, the whole host of policies, and also the payments. Both of them must be part of a reparations package, particularly because we are influenced by the international standard of reparations that takes both the UN and international sources, in the sense that reparations takes 5 forms. Compensation, which a lot of your listeners are familiar with, which we cover with about direct payments, but also this idea of guarantees of non-repetition, meaning the practices and the policies that led us to this point and are continuing and ongoing must be stopped. And then also what folks call rehabilitation, meaning we need new policies, new practices to ensure that black people can thrive, black people can flourish, but also we need what's called satisfaction. We need to go to those folks, the folks who've been harmed, and ask them, are you satisfied with these policies? Does this work for you? Is this going to address the harms? And I also want folks to think about this. The harms did not just end with slavery, as you pointed out, right? We don't just want to focus on slavery. We want to focus on everything that led up to this moment because the harms are ongoing. And when we think about eligibility, right, there is no distinction made about Black people when it comes to structures of racism, right? And that's what we're dealing with. We're dealing with structural racism, and we need structural transformation to address that.
It's just in the political environment we're in right now, this idea of, guarantees of non-repetition seems like the Easter Bunny. I mean, it just doesn't seem, I don't see how that happens. How do you guarantee non-repetition when we have a current administration that seems to be trying to come up, not only do repetition, but come up with new ways, innovative ways to implement anti-Blackness and broaden the gap, the wealth gap?
So that's a good question, an important one. So our policies are, you can think of our policies as being short-term, with an awareness of what is going on in the current moment,
right?
But also long-term, in which we think about what is the kind of world we wish to see, and what do we need to do to get there? What kind of recommendations can we make as part of the process to get to a world of repair, the world that reparations made, right? And so we don't want the current moment to limit our imagination. And so we also understand that we are making these recommendations, and we are doing this work within a long line of folks, a long genealogy of folks who have been organizing for reparations and racial justice and Black liberation. This is a centuries-long fight, and we understand that folks have been facing bigger odds with less resources than we have now. And so it's not a time to be disheartened. It's a time to mobilize, to organize, and to continue to imagine alternative possibilities. And so, yes, this is a difficult moment. We are facing a retrenchment around racial justice. We're facing attacks on our multiracial democracy. But it doesn't mean that we cower in our imaginations. It's time to be expansive. It's now to take that mantle and to think about what is it that we need. We can think affirmatively. And that part of that thinking affirmatively is thinking about reparations, thinking about the repair on a structural level, thinking about this as a future-oriented project, meaning think about looking forward, not backwards, and thinking about what do we need to do as a process to transform New Jersey, the U.S., to like the genuine multiracial democracy and where Black people flourish. And we know, as I said before, when Black people flourish, everyone flourishes.
Indeed. Prester John is in the YouTube chat. He says reparations not simply a U.S. government obligation. There are public and private entities spanning the U.S., the U.K., and Western Europe. There's an international this is an international settlement, not some local payout. He didn't even mention the church, although I'm sure he meant to. We'll answer that question with attorney Jean-Pierre Brutus when we come forward on KBLA Talk 1580.
More of First Things First with Dominique DiPrima when we come forward.
Attorney advertising. Prior results do not guarantee future outcomes. Founded in Los Angeles in 1986, litigation powerhouse Quinn Emanuel has deep roots in the Los Angeles community. Since 2007, we have litigated some of the largest fires on the West Coast. We are proud to be the only AmLaw 100 firm in the country to represent wildfire victims, giving affected individuals, families, and businesses the same focus and individualized attention we devote to our Fortune 500 clients. BTI Consulting has repeatedly recognized Quinn Emanuel as among the 4 law firms in-house counsel least like to oppose in any litigation, and we are often deemed the most feared. And after securing over $80 billion for our clients in various matters firm-wide, we understand why. If you have been affected by the recent wildfires in Altadena and the Palisades and would like to discuss your situation further, please contact wildfire support at QuinnEmanuel.com or call us at 213-443-3050. Quinn Emanuel is proud to sponsor Conversation Live Altadena Rising with James Farr on KBLA Talk 1580. Attorney advertising. Prior results do not guarantee future outcomes.
KBLA Talk 1580. We've got a lot to talk about.
KBLA Talk 1580, connecting you with services and solutions. LA County's new Justice Care and Opportunities Department, or JCOD, is here to support justice-involved individuals and their families. The JCOD Support Center is now taking calls at 1-833-LACJCOD. That's 1-833-522-5263. Available 7 days a week from 6 a.m. to 11 p.m., the Support Center is your one-stop one-stop shop for re-entry issues and court support. They offer court reminders, connections to local services, transportation assistance for housing, court appearances, and childcare. The JCOD hotline provides personalized help to connect you with services that you need. And don't forget to check out justiceconnect.org for more information. Remember, it's free and available every day at 1-833-522-5263. This is a community call to action from KBLA Talk 1580.
Lena Bloom for the Bail Project. Imagine you're stuck in a jail cell and you can't afford bail and someone offers you a way out. Just plead guilty and you can go home and kiss your kids goodnight. What do? What thousands have. You plead guilty whether you are or not. Cash bail makes poverty a crime. That's why the Bail Project helps those who can't afford it while fighting to end cash bail. Because freedom should be free.
Brought to you by the Ad Council.
This is Secret Clinical Dominating Extra Stinky Stress Sweat. And this is regular deodorant. Secret Clinical in a heat wave. Oh, what a beautiful day. This is regular deodorant. Ugh, I can't. Secret Clinical with workout sweat. Let's run another marathon. And regular deodorant. How much more? Secret is the GOAT. Because nothing fights sweat better. Stay fresher under pressure.
We're not for everybody, but we're for everybody. You're listening to KBLA Talk 1580.
You are, and we're glad that you are. And it's Freedmen Friday, so we're talking reparations. The conversation is something we are committed to. And we're talking with Attorney Jean-Pierre Brutus, Senior Counsel in the Economic Justice Program at the New Jersey Institute for Social Justice. The question that was posed before news, traffic, and sports is on the table. And I also want to add Daniel Samir Siren's question, which is how do you legislate policy when so many of the legislators are racist, anti-reparations? But the first question was about reparations as a global or a multi-layered issue, right? Church, private industry, educational institutions, and then state, federal, city, county. Somebody was saying, well, this is too fragmented. We can never get it done if we're doing it piecemeal. So let's put it in a global perspective and in terms of a strategic methodology of handling all these different levels.
Yeah, that's an important question. And having that vision and understanding is important, right? This is a global effort, right? Enslavement and colonialism were global, particularly in the Americas. And slavery in the Americas was widespread, and we can see interconnections, right, between the global and the local. In New Jersey, for example, many of the enslaved people first came not only from the African continent, but from the Bahamas after they were trafficked from Africa to the Bahamas, then to New Jersey. But what I will say is this, is that there are folks working at the global or the international level. There are organizations like CARICOM and NCOBRA and NARC who are working and advocating with the UN, thinking about reparations in terms of the state level, at the country level, for example. And then there are organizations working within nations at the national level. And then there are people working in the U.S. at the state level and the local level. There are advocates who are involved in all these levels, at each level, who are in conversation with one another. And like I just said before, we don't have to think of organizing in an either-or approach. We can do both and. We can organize at the local level, we can organize at the state level, we can organize at the federal level, we can organize at the international level. And there are certainly folks who are doing that. They're in conversation. And I don't think any movement can just work at one level. It has to work in an interconnected level, particularly with something so big, right? Think about the scale of this. This has been happening for centuries. And this is incredibly large in terms of its economic, political, cultural, and social effects. And so working at every level will have an impact. And there are folks who are in conversation with it. Now, in terms of private institutions, in the report itself, we focus on private institutions like universities, like Princeton University and Rutgers University, as well as churches, the Catholic Church, as well as many other churches, the Methodist Church and others in New Jersey. We focus on those and we discuss their role and impact on slavery in New Jersey.
Yeah. Tanya's in the chat saying wherever injustice took place, we sue for reparations. No one is off limits, of course, HR 40 federal, but states, private companies also injured ADOS. And Presser's saying, does this mean the black people of New Jersey or African Americans would get multiple settlements, both local, national, international? I think that's everywhere, John. That's not just of New Jersey. If there's a federal legislation, it's going to impact everyone that's living in the United States or connected to the United States. If there's something for a state, it would impact everyone in that state or that can make a claim within that state. I mean, that's my understanding. It's not just New Jersey. It would be, that's the idea of a reparations movement, is to tackle these things every place we can, I think. And because to your point, Attorney Brutus, there are pockets of harm and pockets of debt marbled all throughout our country and globally as well.
Yes, and they're interconnected, right? They're interconnected. So you have enslavers in New Jersey, you own enslaved people in the Caribbean, right? In New Jersey, enslaved people produced surplus, extra food that went to feed enslaved people in the Caribbean. People move back and forth across state lines, across what we call national lines now. There are many interconnections in the movements of enslaved people across not only the U.S., but the Americas. And also, the profits from slavery didn't follow and just stay in the U.S., or the profits in the Americas didn't just stay there. They moved all around the world that led to industries, the creation of what we think of a national and international economy. And so we need to think big picture in terms of what is the impact of slavery, not just in terms of the harms it inflicted on black people in the U.S. and the Americas, but also what it led to, what it created, and the vast amounts of wealth, but also the structures, the cultural, political, social cultures and structures, And so that's why we need transport. That's why we also need to think about reparations as a process and think about the programmatic transformation, about the policies, because we do need structural reform. We can't just have payments without structural reform, and we can't just have structural reform without direct payments. We need both of them. And so we do need to focus on the policies and practices that change our policing practices, for example, change the healthcare practices, change environmental justice practices, right? The ways in which black people are living close to environmental hazardous sites, right? That needs to be all altered. Also, practices like the modern day redlining, the ways in which banks and other lending institutions are engaging in modern redlining needs to end, but that has a historical precedent, right? We need new ways of engaging with black people in terms of providing investments in black communities.
Yeah. We just got a couple minutes here. I feel like we could talk about this all day, all morning, all year long. But Attorney Jean-Pierre Brutus, what are we missing? What should we be focusing on? Some here in California a little discouraged by setbacks we've had, but many are keeping it pushing, myself included. What are we missing?
So I think what we're missing is we need to think of this as a long-term effort. And there will be wins in the short term, but there will also be losses in the short term. But we need to have a long-term vision. We need to understand about where we are in this fight, in the sense that there were many that came before us, many who will go unnamed, who were part of this fight, and they did not live to see the fruits of their efforts. And so that may happen with our generation as well. But it doesn't mean you don't keep pushing, you don't keep fighting, you don't keep organizing, you don't keep imagining, and you don't keep working. And so things may seem difficult in this moment, but you always need to retain an imagination, because at its most fundamental level, the capacity to imagine an alternative world where black people can flourish is perhaps one of the most radical things and most inspiring things that someone can have, particularly when you're up against it. And so I would encourage your listeners to remember that this is not going to happen overnight. It was centuries of enslavement, of colonialism, of Jim Crow interrogation, and it will take a long time to transform the world in the U.S. into a genuine multiracial democracy with black people first. So don't forget that kind of long vision.
Yeah, I think that's right. We've got a minute here. What do you want to leave us with, Attorney Jean-Pierre Brutus?
I would say please continue to support the work that we're doing in New Jersey, but all around the country. There are task forces popping up. Look at a report. Hopefully, folks can draw some information. Take a look at the policy recommendations, particularly the programmatic recommendations. I would urge your listeners to take a look at that because those are important in terms of changing the structures. That's what and this is a process. And so we want to live in the world that reparations made. We are living in a world that slavery made. We want to live in the world that reparations made.
It's well said. If you're looking for that report, you're going to go to njisj.org or NJ Reparations Council. Is that .org?
Yes, .org, yes.
.org. Attorney Jean-Pierre Brutus, thanks so much for the conversation.
Thank you so much for having me, Dominique. I appreciate it.
Do this every week, y'all. It's called Freedmen Friday for a reason. And we're keeping it going, keeping the conversation going. You can call me, 800-920-1580. I'm Dominique DiPrima for KBLA Talk 1580.
KBLA 1580 Santa Monica.
I'm Bree Wood with BIN News Now. Columbia graduate Mahmoud Khalil is suing the Trump administration for $20 million, claiming false imprisonment and retaliation for his pro-Palestinian activism.
What I want is actually a real accountability against the injustices that happened against me.
Khalil was detained by ICE for over 100 days and says his arrest was politically motivated. Conservative commentator Charlie Kirk is under fire after blaming Texas flood deaths on diversity policies. On his show, he claimed DEI hiring hurt emergency response without evidence. Critics say the real issue is underfunded systems, not inclusion. And Jennifer Hudson will headline the 4th annual Whitney E. Houston Legacy of Love Gala on August 9th in Atlanta, Georgia. The event honors the 40th anniversary of Houston's career and includes performances, a symphony, and scholarships for HBCU arts students. Get BIN News Now on demand 24/7 on the iHeartRadio app.
Got issues with youth or high school sports? Positive Coaching Alliance can help. PCA, a national nonprofit, offers more than 1,000 free online resources for youth and high school sports coaches, parents, students, and administrators. Visit PCADevZone.org.
This is the KBLA Sports Minute with Ray Richardson.
Because Bronny James played in only 27 games last season for the Lakers, he's playing with the Lakers rookies and free agents in the NBA Summer League in Las Vegas. The Summer League tipped off Thursday night with Bronny and the Lakers facing rookies and free agents from the Dallas Mavericks, including number 1 pick Cooper Flagg. Both players had moderate debuts. James finished with 8 points in 21 minutes. He missed a potential go-ahead three-pointer in the final seconds. Flagg ended up with 10 points, 6 rebounds, 4 assists, and 3 steals. He was scoreless in the second half. Dallas won the game by 2. The HBCU Swingman Classic jumps off today in Atlanta as part of Major League Baseball's All-Star Weekend. Major League scouts will get a chance to see the best HBCU baseball players from around the country. MLB Network will have live coverage beginning at 4:30 Pacific Time. No debates, no speculation, just the info you need. That's your KBLA Sports Minute. I'm Ray Richardson on KBLA Talk 1580.
Yeah.